Thanksgiving came, and right in the middle of dinner my daughter stood up from the table as if she were making a toast. Only instead of gratitude, she announced, "We've decided to cut you out of this family." I threw my head back and laughed, because if there's one thing I have learned in 65 years, it's that when people show you their true colors, you had better bring your own paintbrush. I pulled an envelope from my purse and slid it across the table. "Here," I said, sweet as pie, "something for all of you." When they tore it open and saw what I had done, the air left the room. In that instant they knew the comfortable little lives they had been living on my dime were finished. Now, if you are listening to me, go ahead and subscribe and tell me where you are watching from. My name is Catherine Williams, though nearly everyone calls me Kate, and I never imagined I would be sitting in a small beige apartment telling this story to strangers. But here I am. And believe me, it is worth your time. That Thanksgiving dinner was 3 weeks ago. To explain how we reached that moment, I have to pull you back about 6 months, to the day my world shattered, and the slow, deliberate way I built it back up again. It started with Michael's funeral. My husband of 45 years collapsed in the backyard while pruning the yellow climbing roses he loved so dearly. One moment he was humming while he clipped, and the next moment he was gone. The roses kept blooming as if nothing had happened, while everything else in my life screeched to a halt. Felicity, my daughter, and her husband Edgar were very attentive through all the arrangements. They handled the calls I could not face, welcomed the relatives into their pretty colonial house, and nudged me to eat something besides grief. My son Michael flew in from New Jersey with his wife, Patricia, and their twin boys. For a brief stretch, we almost felt like the family Michael and I had raised together. The week after the burial, Felicity sat across from me at my kitchen table, the same table where I had served her oatmeal and toast every morning before school. She looked at me like she was breaking bad news gently. "Mom, you cannot stay in this big house by yourself. It is not safe, and honestly, it does not make sense anymore." I glanced around at the kitchen Michael and I had remodeled 5 years earlier. We had chosen a white subway tile backsplash, a farmhouse sink, and the big island where we drank our morning coffee side by side. "This is my home," I told her firmly. "This is where your father and I built a life together." She softened her voice. "I know, Mom. We are not asking you to leave right away. But think about it. 4 bedrooms, a yard that needs mowing, all those repairs. Dad did most of that, did he not?" She was not wrong. Michael had always been the fixer, the gardener, the one who knew which switch connected to which outlet. But I was not helpless, no matter how my children liked to see me. Edgar chimed in next. "We found a wonderful senior community only 20 minutes from us. Independent living, with support if you ever need it. A pool, activities, people your own age." People my own age, as though I had crossed into ancient history overnight, instead of simply losing my husband. They wore me down the way adult children can when they are convinced they know best. Over the next month, they drove me to tours of retirement communities, handed me glossy brochures, and painted pictures of a life that was safer and easier. Eventually, I gave in. I sold our house, the house where Felicity had learned to walk, where Michael had broken his arm falling out of the old maple, where Michael and I had slow danced in the living room on our 25th anniversary and squabbled over bathroom paint colors. I sold it all and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex that reeked of industrial carpet cleaner. They called it active senior living. As far as I could tell, that meant bingo twice a week and a sad little gym with 2 broken treadmills. The apartment was not awful. It was worse, bland. Beige walls, beige carpet, beige curtains. After a house bursting with quilts, refinished oak, and decades of photographs, I had been reduced to a shoebox of beige and a rent bill. Felicity chirped encouragement as she helped arrange my furniture in rooms too small to hold it. My beloved dining table, where we had shared countless Thanksgivings, looked like a stranded whale in the tiny eating nook. The hutch that had held my china set would not fit at all. "We will store it in our basement," Edgar offered. "You can visit it any time you want. Visit my own china, like it was an inmate serving time." The first month was brutal. I would wake up reaching for Michael, then remember the truth. He was gone, and so was the home we had filled together. I had lost both in the span of weeks. But wallowing has never been my style. Michael always teased that I could find a silver lining in a tornado. So I forced myself to try. I joined the book club, paddled around in the water aerobics class, even endured a few mixers where widows and widowers made small talk over dry sheet cake. That is when Felicity began having financial hiccups. It started with a phone call one Tuesday evening. Her voice was tight, rehearsed. "Mom, I hate to ask, but we are in a pinch. Edgar's commission check is late and our mortgage is due tomorrow. Could you possibly help us out?" Of course I could. I had Michael's pension, the life insurance payout, and the house sale proceeds, more money than I had ever controlled in my life, sitting in accounts doing little more than gathering dust. "How much do you need, honey?" "Just enough to cover the mortgage. $3,200. I will pay you back as soon as Edgar's check comes." I transferred the money that same night. Online banking was one modern trick I had learned to enjoy. Quick, simple. The payback never came. Instead, there was always another reason. Edgar's commission had changed. Felicity lost a client at her part-time job. The car broke down. Their daughter Emily needed funds for school activities. And each time I told myself, family helps family. Besides, what else was I going to do with it? Splurge on steak dinners for one? Book myself on a cruise ship crammed with strangers? No, I gave it to them. Because that is what I thought love looked like. By the time November rolled around, I had handed over more than $35,000 to Felicity and Edgar. Mortgage payments, minimum balances on their credit cards, money for Emily's SAT preparation classes, Donald's orthodontist bills, even that family vacation to Mexico they had already committed to before their finances got tight. I stumbled onto the truth one afternoon by pure accident. Emily, my 16-year-old granddaughter, had been showing me photos from her homecoming dance on my iPad. After she left, I was just trying to close the app so I could get back to my novel when Edgar's latest post flashed across the screen. There he was, arm around Felicity, both of them dressed to the nines at some high-end restaurant, champagne flutes raised, smiling like movie stars. The caption read, "Celebrating another successful quarter. When you work hard, you reward yourself. Blessed." Blessed, indeed. 2 weeks earlier, Felicity had been on the phone with me, tears in her voice, swearing they could not scrape together the money for Emily's college application fees. I could not help myself. I scrolled through more of their posts. My coffee grew cold as picture after picture told a story different from the one I had been living. A weekend getaway to recover from stress that looked exactly like a luxury spa retreat. A casual family dinner at a restaurant where a single entree cost more than my weekly groceries. A modest upgrade to Edgar's car that was very clearly a brand new Audi. All of it posted while I was covering their mortgage with my hard-earned savings. That night I could not sleep. I lay awake thinking about Michael. About how he had worked double shifts at the plant so we could pay off our house early. How we drove our cars until they practically crumbled in the driveway. How we saved and planned, talking for years about the trips we would take together once he retired. Trips that never happened, because 6 months after his retirement party, he was gone. The next morning, I called Felicity. I kept my voice light, casual, as though I had not spent half the night seething. "Hi, honey. How are things going?" She sighed into the phone, sounding weary. "Oh, you know. The same old struggles. Edgar's commission check is late again, and we are behind on Emily's car insurance." Interesting. According to Instagram, Edgar had just celebrated the biggest deal of his quarter. That sounds awful, sweetheart. You must be under so much stress. I am, Mom. I hate having to ask, but I just do not know what else to do. Her lies rolled off her tongue smooth as butter. Clearly, she had been practicing. "How much do you need this time? Could you manage 800? I know it is a lot, but… Of course, I will transfer it this afternoon. Except I did not. Instead, I picked up the phone and made an appointment with Nike Green, the estate attorney who had handled Michael's will. A sharp man, well known for protecting seniors from exactly the kind of mess I seemed to be in. His office was what you would expect from a lawyer who did well for himself: leather chairs, shelves lined with heavy law books, diplomas hung on dark wood-paneled walls. But Nike himself was younger than I had imagined, 45 at most, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Williams, thank you for coming in. How can I help?" So I told him everything. About selling the house. About moving into the apartment. About Felicity and Edgar's constant emergencies. And finally, about the Instagram posts. By the end of it, his professional mask had slipped, replaced by a look of sheer outrage. "Mrs. Williams, in legal terms, what is happening to you is elder financial abuse. Your daughter and son-in-law are exploiting your generosity, using your love for them to bankroll their lifestyle." I bristled. "They are my family, Mr. Green. Family helps family." He leaned forward. "Family helps family in times of genuine need, not to cover luxury vacations and new cars. You have given them $35,000 in just 4 months. That is not help. That is being taken advantage of." The words stung, because they were true. I had raised Felicity to be better than this. I thought I had taught her about honesty, hard work, and gratitude. Clearly, somewhere along the way, I had failed. "What can I do about it?" I asked quietly. Nike leaned back in his chair. "Several things. First, we document everything: bank records, text messages, social media posts. Second, we close off their access to your funds immediately. And third, if you are willing, we can pursue legal action to recover the money they obtained through deceit." The thought of legal action against my own daughter made my stomach twist. I do not want to send her to jail. That is understandable. But you must protect yourself, Mrs. Williams. This will not stop on its own. People who exploit family rarely stop voluntarily. Elderly relatives. That is what I was now. An elderly relative. The word sat heavy on my chest. We spent another hour discussing options. Nike recommended starting with protection, new bank accounts, a thorough review of my assets, documentation of every transfer and every lie. Then we would see how Felicity and Edgar responded. As I gathered my purse to leave, Nike asked, "Do you have other family members who might be involved? Your son, perhaps?" I shook my head. "I do not think so. Michael lives in Denver. He calls me every week, sends cards and little gifts. He has never asked for money, not once. He seems to be doing just fine on his own." "Good," Nike said. "You will need allies in the family, people not compromised by financial interests. These situations often divide families along money lines." That weekend, I did something I had not done since Michael passed away. I cooked a proper meal for myself. A pot roast with potatoes and carrots, just the way Michael loved it. I set the table with my good china, the very same dishes Felicity had told me I should give up because the apartment was too small to entertain. Well, I was not entertaining. I was feeding myself. And I had every right to enjoy them. While the roast simmered, I spread 4 months of bank statements across the table. With a yellow highlighter, I marked every single transfer I had made to Felicity and Edgar. The final tally was even worse than I had guessed: $37,800. Enough to buy a brand new car. Enough to take a true vacation. Not one of those cheap senior cruises Felicity kept suggesting I book instead of worrying about their bills. Halfway through my meal, my phone rang. Felicity, of course. "Mom," she said quickly, "I am so sorry to bother you, but did you forget to send the money for Emily's car insurance?" "No, honey, I did not forget," I said calmly. There was a pause on the other end. Then Felicity tried again. "Oh, well, could you send it tonight?" The payment is due first thing tomorrow. I steadied my voice. Felicity, I have been thinking. Maybe you and Edgar should consider financial counseling. There are programs that help families manage their budgets more effectively. This time the silence lasted longer. Finally, she snapped, Mom, we do not need counseling. We need temporary help until Edgar's commission structure stabilizes. Sweetheart, I replied, it has been 4 months. That does not sound temporary anymore. Her tone changed, harder, sharper. Are you saying you will not help us? I am saying you need a solution that does not involve your widowed mother writing checks every week. The silence stretched like a crack splitting open between us. Fine, she said at last. I will figure something else out. But do not blame me when Emily cannot get to her job because we cannot afford insurance. Then she hung up on me. Yes, my own daughter hung up on me. I sat there holding the phone, wondering when the girl I had raised turned into a woman I barely recognized. The next few weeks were chilly. Felicity still called, but her voice carried a cold distance, almost like speaking to a stranger. She did not directly ask for money, but she made sure to sprinkle in every possible financial burden. Emily's college applications. Donald's basketball tournament fees. The furnace that might need replacing before the winter. Each mention sounded less like conversation and more like a guilt trip disguised as small talk. Meanwhile, I was working with Nike Green, my attorney, building what he called financial firewalls. New bank accounts at an entirely different institution. Investment accounts that Felicity and Edgar had never even known about. A safe deposit box for my important documents. You are being very smart about this, Nike told me during one of our meetings. Most people in your situation wait until the damage is much worse before taking action. How much worse can it get? I asked. Mrs. Williams, I have seen adult children drain their parents' entire life savings. 7 figures, sometimes. By the time the parents realize what is happening, they are facing eviction or cannot afford basic medical care. That was when he told me about Mrs. Carpenter, an 80-year-old woman whose son forged her name on a reverse mortgage and blew the money on cryptocurrency. Then about Mr. Rodriguez, whose daughter-in-law convinced him to add her to all his accounts, only to clean him out and file for divorce the next month. Suddenly, my $37,000 looked almost quaint. But Nike was right, if I kept allowing it, the damage would keep growing. The holiday season is often when this behavior escalates, he warned me. Families gather, expectations rise, and financial stress peaks. I suspect your daughter and her husband are already expecting their usual Christmas windfall. Christmas. I had not even thought that far ahead. The year before, Michael and I had given Felicity's family $6,000 to make the holiday special for the kids. This year, they probably expected more, especially since they assumed I had extra funds from selling the house. What do you advise? I asked him. Set boundaries now, before the requests begin. Decide what you are willing to give, if anything, and hold to it. Do not let guilt or manipulation steer you. That night, I made up my mind. I would give Emily and Donald $500 each for Christmas, directly into their hands, not through their parents. As for Felicity and Edgar, nothing. No holiday money. No extra help. No more playing Santa Claus while they drained me dry. I was determined to have my first honest Christmas in years. But Felicity, as always, had other plans. The call came on a Monday evening in early November. I knew something was off the moment I heard her crying. Felicity never cried. Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to promise you will not get angry. Every parent knows those words never bring good news. What is it, honey? She sniffled. We have been having problems with Edgar's company. He might lose his job. They are restructuring and his position is on the chopping block. My heart sank despite everything. Losing a job right before the holidays was terrible news, no matter how I felt about their choices. Oh, Felicity, I am so sorry. When will he know for certain? Next week. But even if he keeps it, they are cutting his territory in half. His income will drop by at least 40%. That is awful, I said softly. Have you started looking at your budget? Thinking about what expenses you can trim back? We have gone over everything. Mom, we are already running lean. Lean? I thought. Lean people do not post photographs from restaurants that charge $200 a plate. There is something else, Felicity went on. Something I probably should have told you months ago. Here it comes, I thought. When we asked you to help with the mortgage, it was not just a temporary cash flow issue. We have actually been behind for almost a year. We are in danger of losing the house. The house. Their perfect colonial with the manicured lawn and the two-car garage. The house I had been paying on for months, believing I was patching a short-term gap. They were already sinking. How far behind are you? 6 months. Maybe 7. But if we catch up the payments and show steady income, the bank will work with us. 7 months. 7 months of unpaid mortgage while they wined and dined themselves, calling it blessings on social media. And how much would it take to catch up? About $25,000. I know it is a lot, Mom, but if we lose the house, where will Emily and Donald go to school? Emily is in her junior year. We cannot uproot her now. Please. $20,000. On top of nearly $40,000 I had already poured into their bottomless pit. Felicity, I said, I need to think about this. There is not much time. The foreclosure notice gives us 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to decide whether to throw good money after bad or let my grandchildren learn the harsh lesson of consequences. I will call you tomorrow, I told her. That night, I did something I had not done since Michael's funeral. I cried until my eyes were swollen, until my chest ached, until there were no tears left. Then I picked up the phone and called Nike Green's emergency line. He answered on the second ring. Mrs. Williams, are you all right? No, I admitted, my voice raw. I do not think I am. They are about to lose their house, and they want me to bail them out again. How much this time? $25,000. To catch up on mortgage payments they had been missing for months, while I thought I was helping them keep current. Nike let the silence stretch before he finally spoke. Mrs. Williams, what your daughter and son-in-law have been doing is fraud. They took money from you under false pretenses, assuring you the mortgage was up to date when in fact they were already facing foreclosure. Fraud. Such a hard, ugly word. But it sat there between us, and deep down I knew it fit. What happens if I say no? I asked. They will likely lose the house, Nike replied calmly. They will have to rent somewhere smaller until they rebuild their credit. Your grandchildren will probably have to change schools. And if I say yes? Then you will be out $65,000 in total, with no promise they will not be back in the same mess 6 months from now. You would also be reinforcing a dangerous pattern, rewarding their irresponsibility and teaching them they can lie their way to another bailout. I knew he was right. I had known for weeks. But there is a canyon between knowing something in your head and accepting it in your heart. Nike leaned forward. There is another thing to consider. Thanksgiving is next week. Based on everything you have told me, this conversation about the mortgage is only the setup. They are going to want an answer, and they are probably counting on the holiday setting to pressure you into saying yes. Thanksgiving. The holiday Michael and I had hosted for 2 decades, before Felicity took over. The holiday that was supposed to mean gratitude and togetherness. What would you do, Mr. Green, if it were your own daughter? He looked at me steadily. I would protect myself. I would let her face the consequences of her own choices. But, he added gently, I understand that is easier said than done when it is your family. After I hung up, I sat in my beige apartment, staring at the framed photo on my side table. Michael and me, laughing on our 40th anniversary. He had been so proud when we paid off our house early, so careful with every dollar, so determined to build a future we could rely on. If he were here, what would he say? I think I already knew. But I was not ready to admit it out loud. I told myself I had one more week to decide, save my daughter's family or save myself. As it turned out, the choice would be made for me. Thanksgiving arrived gray and cold, fitting for what I suspected would be the last holiday we spent together as a family. I had made my decision 2 nights earlier, after one final insult that burned away any lingering hesitation. Emily had called me directly, her voice small but serious. "Grandma, can I ask you something privately?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Are Mom and Dad having money problems?" "They keep whispering, and they seem really stressed." I held my breath. "Why do you ask?" "Well, Mom told me you could not help with my college applications because you are on a fixed income now. But then I saw Dad's new golf clubs. They cost $3,000. I looked them up online. $3,000. On golf clubs. While they told their own daughter that Grandma could not spare $400 for application fees. That was the moment I knew I was finished being their personal cash machine. I arrived at Felicity's house carrying 2 things, my famous sweet potato soufflé in a green casserole dish and a manila envelope that would change everything. Inside were copies of every transfer, every Instagram post, every message, all laid out in order. And one more document that would ensure they would never try this again. "Mom." Felicity greeted me at the door with a hug that was just a little too enthusiastic. "You look wonderful. That color is perfect on you." The flattery came early. Edgar appeared next with a glass of wine and his broadest smile. "Catherine. So good to see you. How are you settling into the apartment?" "Just fine, thank you," I said evenly. Emily and Donald hugged me tightly, and for a moment, guilt tugged at me. But then I reminded myself, the truth needed to come out, not just for me, but for them. Dinner went on as if nothing were wrong. Conversations were steered carefully away from money. They chatted about Emily's college applications, Donald's basketball season, Edgar's latest projects. All pleasant. All false. After dessert, Felicity and Edgar exchanged a look. "Showtime." "Mom," Felicity began softly, "we wanted to talk to you about the house situation." "Of course," I said, folding my napkin. "We know it is a huge amount of money," Felicity continued, "but the bank has agreed that if we bring the mortgage current by Monday, they will work with us on a new payment plan." "That is wonderful news," I replied. Edgar leaned forward, his voice earnest. "Catherine, this really is our last chance. After this, there are no more options." "I understand," I said calmly. "So we were hoping," Felicity hesitated. "You were hoping I would give you $25,000, I finished for her." "Loan," Edgar corrected quickly. "We would pay you back, with interest." I reached into my purse and set the manila envelope on the table. "Actually, I have something for all of you." Felicity's eyes lit up with relief. "Oh, Mom, you did not need to bring gifts." "Open it," I said. She pulled out the stack of papers and flipped through the top page. Her face went pale as she realized what she was holding. "What is this?" "Documentation," I said, my voice steady, "of every lie you have told me for the past 4 months." Edgar's smile vanished. "Catherine, I think there has been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I cut him off. "You took $37,800 from me while crying hardship, and you spent it on vacations, luxury dinners, and golf clubs. All while your mortgage went unpaid." Felicity's hands trembled. "Mom, you are taking this out of context." "Really? What context makes it acceptable to lie to your widowed mother about mortgage payments while you are 7 months behind?" Emily looked between her parents, her face pale. "Is this true? Have you been lying to Grandma?" "It is complicated, sweetheart," Edgar tried. "No, it is not," I said firmly as I pushed back my chair and stood. "It is fraud. And it ends tonight." That was when Felicity played her last, desperate card. We decided to cut you out of this family. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Emily gasped. Donald just stared at his mother as though she had grown horns. Edgar looked like he wanted to melt right into the floorboards. And me? I laughed. Not the bitter kind, not even a sad chuckle. A real, hearty laugh. After all the guilt trips, lies, and manipulations, my daughter honestly thought she could scare me into handing over money by threatening to shut me out. Well, I said, reaching back into the envelope, in that case, you will definitely want to see the rest of this. I pulled out another stack of papers and slid them across the table. This is a report from the private investigator I hired last week. The silence was so complete you could have heard a pin drop. It lists every purchase you made with my money, I continued. Every overpriced dinner, every so-called vacation, every indulgence, all cross-referenced with your social media posts and your credit card statements. Edgar's face drained of color. You hired an investigator? I did. And I also filed a complaint with the State Attorney General's Office for Elder Financial Abuse. That is the third document in your stack. Felicity's hand shook as she flipped through the pages. Her composure cracked. You cannot do this to us. We are your family. Family does not steal from each other, Felicity. But since you made it clear I am no longer part of this family, that makes you two nothing more than common criminals. Grandma? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. What is going to happen to me? I softened. You, sweetheart, are going to be fine. I am going to spend my Thanksgiving at home, quietly, with a good book. What happens to your parents? That depends entirely on how cooperative they decide to be with the authorities. That is when Edgar snapped. You vindictive old woman. Do you have any idea what you have just done? We will lose everything. You already lost everything, I told him coldly, the moment you decided to treat me like a mark instead of a mother. The kids will have to change schools, he barked. The kids, I shot back, will learn that actions have consequences. Something you clearly never learned yourself. Felicity dissolved into tears. Mom, please. If you go through with this, you will never see your grandchildren again. I looked at Emily and Donald, both staring at their parents with shock and disappointment written all over their faces. My heart ached, but I stayed steady. Sweetheart, I said gently to Emily, you will be 18 in 2 years. At that point, you can decide for yourself whether you want to have a relationship with a grandmother who refused to enable your parents' bad behavior, or with parents who tried to use you as a pawn. I gathered my purse and coat. The investigator's report also includes a recommendation for financial counseling, and maybe even addiction treatment for your spending habits. I suggest you take that advice seriously. At the doorway, I turned one last time. Oh, and Felicity, happy Thanksgiving. The first call came at 6 o'clock the next morning. Felicity, sobbing hysterically. Then Edgar, swinging between fury and desperation. Then Felicity again, her tone calculated this time. Mom, I know you are angry, but please think about Emily and Donald. They do not deserve to suffer for our mistakes. I had been up since dawn, sipping my coffee on the balcony, watching the sun rise in perfect peace, the kind of peace you only find once you stop waiting for the next plea for money. You are right, I said. They do not deserve to be punished. But they also do not deserve parents who lie, steal, and use them as human shields when they get caught. We never meant for it to go this far, Felicity insisted. Which part, Felicity? I asked. The lying part, or the stealing part? We are not criminals, Mom. We just made some bad decisions when we were desperate. Desperate people do not buy $3,000 golf clubs while claiming they cannot afford their daughter's college applications. Her silence was answer enough. By noon, my phone had logged 17 calls, 43 text messages, and 2 long emails. The messages ran the full spectrum: tearful apologies, legal threats, promises that they would never ask me for money again if I just dropped the complaint. I ignored every single one. At 2 o'clock, Nike Green called. Mrs. Williams, I have been contacted by an attorney representing your daughter and son-in-law. They want to discuss a settlement. What kind of settlement? Full restitution of the money they took. Plus, they want you to agree not to pursue criminal charges or civil action. In return, they will have no further contact with you. I laughed out loud. They think no contact with them is something I would pay to achieve? That is a bargain. Apparently, their attorneys believe family relationships mean more to you than money, Nike said carefully. They are wrong, I told him. At this point, my self-respect is worth more to me than either. So you want to proceed? I thought of Emily and Donald. I thought of Felicity as a little girl, handing me dandelions she called flowers. I thought of Edgar nervously asking for my blessing before he proposed. And then I thought of Michael. All those years of overtime. His quiet pride when we paid off our house. The promises we made to one another to protect what we had built. Yes, I said. We proceed. That evening, my phone rang again. Michael's voice came across the line from Denver. Mom, Felicity called me crying. She says you filed some kind of complaint against them. Finally, the conversation I had been expecting. I filed a complaint for elder financial abuse, I said simply. They took nearly $40,000 from me under false pretenses. 40,000? Michael breathed. Jesus, Mom. I had no idea it was that much. They have been lying to me for months, Michael. Telling me they needed help with expenses while they were already in foreclosure. Using my money for luxuries while telling Emily I could not afford $400 for her applications. There was a long silence on the other end. That is really messed up, Mom, Michael finally said after a long pause. I am sorry. I held my breath. You are not angry with me for protecting myself from people who were stealing from me? No, he said firmly. I am not angry. I am proud of you. That broke something inside me. I started to cry, not out of weakness, but from sheer relief, gratitude, and love for this son who saw the situation clearly and stood by me despite the family drama. Patricia and I have been talking, Michael continued. We want you to come visit for Christmas. Stay as long as you like. The boys would love to have their grandmother around. For the first time in months, Christmas sounded like something I could actually look forward to. The settlement conference was scheduled for the following Tuesday in Nike Green's office. Felicity and Edgar arrived with their attorney, Victor Clark, a slick, sharp-dressed man who specialized in damage control for white-collar crooks. Both of them looked awful. Edgar had lost weight, and worry lines carved his face. Felicity, who had always taken such pride in her perfect hair and makeup, looked worn and hollow-eyed, like she had not slept properly in weeks. Good, I thought. Price came out swinging. Mrs. Williams, my clients admit there may have been some misunderstandings about the financial assistance you provided, but filing criminal complaints against your own family is extreme. Vindictive, even. Nike did not even bother to look up from his notes. Your clients committed elder financial abuse. There is no misunderstanding about lying to obtain money. The money was given freely by a family member who wanted to help, Price shot back. Nike's eyes flicked up. The money was obtained through fraud. My client has documented evidence of lies told to obtain every transfer. Price shifted tactics, his tone softer. Mrs. Williams, surely you do not want to see your daughter in jail. Think about your grandchildren. And that was it. That was the moment I had heard enough. Mr. Price, I said, leaning forward, for 4 months I have been told to think about my grandchildren every time I questioned a request for money. I was told to think about my grandchildren while my daughter lied to my face about needing mortgage payments she never made. I was told to think about my grandchildren while my son-in-law spent my money on golf clubs and told his daughter I was too poor to help with her college applications. I fixed him with a stare that could peel paint. I have thought about my grandchildren, Mr. Price. And I have decided they deserve better parents than the ones they currently have. Felicity sobbed loudly. Edgar stared at the table like he wished it would swallow him whole. Price looked like he was questioning whether his fee was worth this mess. However, I continued, I am willing to discuss alternatives. Nike glanced at me, surprised. We had not talked about alternatives. I want full restitution of the $37,800, I said. I want a written apology, acknowledging exactly what they did. And I want them to attend 6 months of financial counseling. Price raised an eyebrow. And in return? In return, I said, I will agree not to pursue criminal charges. The civil complaint remains until restitution is complete. But there will be no jail time, if they pay. Felicity lifted her tear-streaked face. And, we can rebuild our relationship? No, Felicity, I said flatly. That ship sailed the moment you told me I was no longer part of this family. This is not about family anymore. This is strictly business. Edgar finally spoke up. We do not have $37,000. Then you will make payments, I said. Nike will draw up a schedule. And if we cannot make the payments? Edgar asked quietly. Then, Nike said smoothly, the criminal complaint reactivates, and you face both civil and criminal court. Price leaned toward his clients, whispering furiously. Then he turned back. We need time to consider this offer. You have until Friday, I said. After that, we proceed with charges. As they left the room, Felicity paused at the door. Mom, she whispered, I am sorry. I know you probably do not believe me, but I really am sorry. I looked her straight in the eye. I believe you are sorry you got caught. I do not believe you are sorry you did it. She left without another word. That evening Nike called me at home. Mrs. Williams, I have to ask, are you truly willing to send your daughter to jail if she refuses the settlement? I thought about that for a long time. Nike, if she were a stranger who had stolen $40,000 from me, would you even ask me that question? He was quiet. No. I would not. Then you have your answer. 6 months later, I am writing this story from my new apartment in Denver, 3 blocks from Michael and Patricia's home. Out my window I can see the Rocky Mountains instead of a parking lot. My kitchen is big enough to hold the dining set that once languished in Felicity's basement. The settlement was signed. Felicity and Edgar are making payments of $800 per month, which will take just over 4 years to complete. They lost their house anyway. Turns out the $25,000 I refused to hand over would not have saved it after all. Emily is finishing her junior year at a new school and working part-time to save for college. Donald has settled into apartment living and adjusted to a more modest life. And so far, Felicity and Edgar have not missed a single payment. As for me, Michael's family has wrapped me in the kind of warmth I had forgotten was possible. I have my own space, but I see my grandson several times a week. 10-year-old Marcus is learning to bake Michael's famous chocolate chip cookies with me. 8-year-old Luke has declared that I give the best hugs in Colorado. I joined a local book club, started volunteering at the literacy center, and even tried skiing for the first time at 69. I am terrible at it, but the hot chocolate afterward is worth the bruises. Last month, I received a letter from Emily. She wrote to tell me she had been accepted to 3 colleges, each with partial scholarships. She thanked me for refusing to enable her parents' behavior, and said she was beginning to understand the value of earning things instead of being handed them. She also mentioned that Felicity and Edgar had joined Gamblers Anonymous along with their financial counseling. Turns out Edgar's commission delays were really gambling losses. The fancy dinners and big purchases were not celebrations of success, but desperate attempts to keep up appearances while their world collapsed. I felt a pang of sadness reading that letter, but not guilt. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to help them destroy themselves. Michael used to tell me the hardest part of parenting was not knowing when to catch your children when they stumbled, it was knowing when to let them fall so they would finally learn to watch their own step. It took me 68 years to understand what he meant. Felicity has not reached out to me directly since the settlement was signed, but through Michael I hear bits and pieces. She and Edgar are both working now, living within their means, slowly repairing the credit they shattered. Emily has started talking to them again, though it is clear their relationship is not the same as it once was. Some bridges, I have learned, can be patched back together. Others have to be torn down and replaced with something new entirely. As for me, I am living the life Michael and I dreamed of when we used to sit on the back porch, talking about our golden years. I travel when I want to. I spoil my grandchildren responsibly, no blank checks, but plenty of love and laughter. And I make my own choices about how to spend my money and my time. I still miss Michael every single day. But I no longer carry guilt for being happy without him. And I never, ever, feel guilty about protecting myself from people who would take advantage of my love, even when those people are family. Especially when those people are family. Thank you for listening to my story. Do not forget to subscribe, and if you feel moved to, share your own story in the comments. Because your voice matters, sometimes more than you realize.